I've had a few people ask me if I had something that I could give them that they could work with. And again, like I said, if you don't like anything I'm about to say, adapt it, change it around, whatever makes you comfortable. Try it several times, experiment with it until you get something that seems to be working for you. But for those people that have been trying spells to try to get, I guess, seems to be a lot of that here lately. Maybe it's just because it's spring is in the air. People wanting to reconcile their previous relationships and stuff. You should be able to use this in conjunction with like reconciliation and other types of spells. Most of my magic is basically intent based. When I actually do feel like I need to do a spell, I usually write my own. And occasionally, if I do use someone else's system, I try to customize it to me, pretty much. I don't have any reason to be doing any come back to me spells because I'm single right now and I'm loving every minute of it. But if I was going to do something like that, because I have done something similar to this several years ago, and it worked very well. Although I will say, it's not a lie. Usually, if you go trying to force people to fall in love with you, there usually is backlash at some point. It may not happen within 6 months or overnight. I mean, you may get a good 10 years in with the person or whatever before stuff starts to fall apart. But eventually, at some point, if it was not meant to be and you go trying to force someone to come back to you, either it's so not meant to be, it's not going to happen at all, no matter what you try to do to get back with the person, or it's going to last, and you're going to have probably like the best 5, 6, 7 years of your life, but then shit's going to hit the fan. That's what I've been hearing from a lot of people that have ever done any kind of love magic. They go into it, they're like, well, nothing bad happened. I've been with this person for 9 years now, and then all of a sudden one day, 17 years later, they have like the absolute worst falling out, and then they're wondering why in the hell they even bothered getting together in the first place. So just be forewarned with that kind of stuff. If it was me, though, if I was wanting to get somebody to come back to me, I would probably take a photo of myself and a photo of the person that I was wanting to attract back to me. Now, like, even if you have to go and look at someone's Facebook account or go through your old high school yearbook and chop out a photo if it's somebody you went to school with, and even if the picture's outdated and this has been 8 years since you went to high school, it doesn't matter. You can even Xerox a copy of the yearbook photo as long as it's that person. Does not matter how current the photo is. But I would take a photo of myself and the other person involved and take a piece of ribbon and basically try to bind the two photos together, and that would be like an act of binding the two people together. Now, my recommendation for that was probably taking red ribbon or pink, but if all you can get is white, that's fine. The reasons for red or pink should be obvious because romance, relationships, if you know anything about color magic, that should be obvious. And I would go into a visual and basically meditate of me and that other person getting back together. See yourself holding hands, having sex, kissing, just being romantic, going on dates. Now, you could probably turn this into a love spell, not just to come back to me. If it's someone that you have never been in a relationship with before, you could easily alter this and try to make it into a love spell. But if it's somebody you're trying to get back, when you're having the visual, thinking about the two of you interacting in lovey-dovey couple ways, I would go into it so strongly until you basically, some of the feelings you may have had for the person start to resurface. Like really feel the happiness and emotions. If you can think back to like maybe the way you and your girlfriend were 3 years ago, and it was just absolute happiness when you were in each other's presence. You just had that like almost sickening lovey-dovey crap going on with each other where you're just like so inseparable it sort of makes everyone else around you kind of sick or whatever. Just picture that in your mind and like picture trying to get that back. And don't even think about like arguments or the way anything is now. But pretty much immerse yourself in the vision until you find yourself smiling, like find yourself cracking a smile or whatever. Or even if you start to get aroused thinking about the two of you getting intimate or whatever. And then once you're fully immersed in that visual, while still keeping that visual in mind, take the two photos, you and the other person, or printed paper, whatever you have to work with, and I would place the two pictures together with the front sides facing each other, where the face on each picture is touching each other. Like if you were a 5-year-old kid and you were making two Barbie dolls kiss, because we thought that stuff was funny when we were kids. Face the photos towards each other like you're messing around trying to make the two photos kiss each other or something. And then take the ribbon and wrap it around those two photos while they're basically facing each other. And while you are wrapping the ribbon around the photo, still trying to keep that visual in your mind, you would say something like, guy or girl's name, I bind you to me in love and in lust. Guy or girl's name, you will come back to me. Guy or girl's name, you are mine. And like I said, keep it really simple, because that's something you can remember. And if you start chanting that, if you keep it to like 3 or 4 really short lines of incantation, it'll get stuck in your mind. And then anytime you are anywhere and you got nothing to do, taking a smoke break at work, or maybe you're at lunch or something, if that can get stuck in your mind and that starts to pop into your mind, start chanting it to yourself in your mind and going into that visual again as often as you can, because that'll be re-immersing yourself. And pretty much it'll allow you to put emotion into it as often as you can, because these type of spells that I do, you have to have a good imagination, and you have to be immersed in it. I mean, like I said, if you can't do that, you can always swap this out for a bunch of tools and incense and gemstones and stuff if you're more comfortable that way. But if you're like me and you prefer to use your imagination, as long as you can keep going into those visuals and putting a lot of effort into it. I mean, make it a point to even sit there and force yourself every night before you go to bed. That way you'll be good and groggy, and you'll be in a little trance-like state. Repeat this every night before you go to bed, and then try to think of that person when you're falling asleep. Because if you can do it enough to where you fall asleep and actually trigger a dream about that person, then that's really good. But again, though, like I said, you say the person's name, so you pretty much say that if the person's name was Henry, you would say, Henry, I bind you to me in love and in lust. Henry, you will come back to me. Henry, you are mine. And again, I put emphasis on you will come back to me and you are mine, because that's sort of like your way of saying to this visual and to the person in your visual that I don't give a shit what you want. I want you, and you're going to be mine whether you want to or not. I mean, like, you really don't have to be forceful to that person in real life, but for the visual or whatever, if you pretend, go into pretend mode like a child here and pretend like that person is obedient to you and they have to do whatever you say. And obviously that's not the case, or else you wouldn't be doing a spell on them in the first place, but it's a good example. Just forget about the spell for a second and pretend like they are your servant and they absolutely have to obey you. Come up with the incantations in a way to where how you would order that person around if you were to say that in your mind and knew that they would come to you because of that. And just repeat it as often as you need to. But that's just something I thought I'd throw out there, because I probably had at least 4, maybe even 5 people ask me that lately. That the person really, really despises them, and they wanted a couple of different spells that they could put together and do back to back to try to really get this person's attention. So not just the spell, but like I said, really with anything, the more you get immersed into it, the better the result is going to be.